I'm not a ranger yet, but I will be in the future.
Once a ranger,
Always a ranger.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Once a Ranger. I'm Minhas, and I'm joined with Nav, Akil, and Nick. This is the episode where we're talking about Green with Evil, much anticipated episode.
Yes.
Before we start, we do acknowledge that the new trailer came out for the 30th anniversary. We're all very excited, but we will be touching on that later, and we will have a special episode for that episode, because obviously it's a big deal. So let's jump right into it. Green with Evil, the introduction of Tommy, one of the most iconic Rangers in Power Rangers history. Let's start with the person who knows nothing about it. Akil.
Yes, I do know nothing. I'm going to ask a lot of questions. Because this was an intense story. First of all, I think this is the most cohesive Rita plan we've seen yet.
Yeah.
It is the most thorough and probably the best, and it only messes up mostly because of Goldar. But when Rita says that she's going to take this teenager who just happens to be dressed in green and turn him into the Green Ranger, everyone knows what she's talking about. So is the Green Ranger established? Do we know that? Are they like always evil? Like, who's the Green Ranger?
So this is where I wrote a little asterisk and a nod to Nuv, because the new Power Ranger movie says that Rita used to be the Green Ranger.
Yes.
In the official Power Rangers lore, they don't mention why she has the green power coin or the access to the Dragon Zord. So it's really up to the imagination. But a lot of people did also theorize that she used to be the Green Ranger.
Green Ranger, yeah.
Okay.
In comic book canon, there was a thief that stole the power coin from Ninjor. You don't know who Ninjor is, so this is just a complete out of left field kind of fact. But I guess the power coin was in the possession of somebody else. That thief took the power coin, and Rita was aware of that, and then took the power coin from that thief. But she couldn't unlock the power of the power coin because she was not a courageous. She wasn't a good person. That's essentially what happened.
Or a teenager, which seems to be a teenager
with attitude. That was a very big qualification. Which is what kind of leads her to, get a teenager with attitude to then unlock the power of the power coin. That's comic book canon, though.
Interesting.
And what a good choice. He has so much attitude.
I think he does have a lot of attitude, man.
So Tommy, this first scene when we see Tommy and Jason together for the first time, I think is quite iconic. It's the first time you see Tommy and Jason go head to head, and you really see that their skill level is matched, equal. They even end up the match in a tie, which I think is very important. And for Jason, this is where you actually start to see him having to really step up as a leader. Like, he before never had to prove his place as a leader because he was always the first choice. He was the obvious choice. Tommy comes in and shatters that, absolutely shatters that. And just visually, I know it's Power Rangers, just visually, it was very nice to see them do that scene. I'm so glad they opened with that scene.
Yeah. It's so it's funny. I know other shows and movies do this, but when I was watching that scene, it really made me think of wrestling as a wrestling fan, because when they introduce a new character and they have them go up against an established one, but they don't want to make either one look bad, they do exactly what the show did, which is have them end in a draw, their fight, right? Because especially if they're both good guys, which is what they're showing us, right? So I just loved that moment, because it was just, in my head, I'm just like, oh, it's just like wrestling, where they just have them have, the match never has a proper ending, because then that way neither person looks bad, right? Even though it wouldn't probably, but it's just to establish, okay, we know Jason's skilled and he's a great martial artist, and here's this other dude who is able to literally go blow for blow with him. He's someone to I really love the beginning of the first episode, because it, in 5 to 7 minutes, really establishes Tommy, why he's worthy of being given the coin and being Rita's evil Green Ranger. It's just really well done in such a brief time, and the show just jumps into it too.
Yeah, immediately. And I love that despite them being both these like heavily martial artist characters, and I feel like even in the future episodes, like their personalities, what they're bringing to the team is pretty much essentially the same thing, right? Which is often why they get head to heads, but their personalities are still different enough that it's not like just having two leaders. Like in the beginning when you first get introduced to Tommy and I love that they did this as well because it's such a stark difference to evil Tommy. He's very like shy, puppy face, kind of like the way he talks to Kimberly is kind of just like tee.
He doesn't know how to get asked out by a girl.
Yeah. It's adorable. I literally thought like, the first time I saw that, even as a child, you're just kind of like, Tommy, you're breaking my heart here. You're so cute. And I think that it's just nice that they had that because that's definitely different to Jason, who is very confident, upfront, and true to who he is at all times. I'm not saying that Tommy isn't. It's just that there is an air of shyness to Tommy that Jason doesn't have, and that shyness doesn't go away, right? The way he's very soft-spoken and the way he constantly talks to Kimberly and the rest of the team is continually to be soft-spoken.
Yeah. It was really fun to kind of just relive. I mean, I've seen this probably 3 times in the past like month or so since I've watched it, but it's always fun to rewatch it and just like have new thoughts about it. I think when like looking at this scene again, it was like it really is like a perfect introduction to his character in a way that just establishes like, yeah, he is a good fighter. He like you don't have to like go into this backstory of be like, yeah, I trained since I was a kid and I did all that. It's like, no,
you just show it.
Yeah, you just show it. And it's like, okay, so everyone just knows karate. And that's cool. That's cool. Later on, like future seasons, it's just like everybody knows martial arts for some reason. But like here, it feels very like natural. It's like, of course they would meet in a fighting competition. I don't need to think this over too much. It just makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and now that you mentioned that, it's true because in later seasons there isn't the contacts. Like they literally met in a martial arts contact, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
But when they, spoiler alert, introduce Rocky, and Adam and Aisha. So Aisha especially is like, why does she know martial arts? There's no like context. I mean, Rocky is also like Jason and them. They also are martial artists. What's going on with Adam, right? Like, it's funny. I don't complain about it because I like them, but it's funny that you bring that up because it's just like, what is the lore here? But okay, so I did want to bring up Bulk and Skull. So we have this continuation of Skull's crush on Kimberly. So this is still very early in episode 1, still getting to know Tommy. Skull comes and like kind of hits on Kimberly, but then it's like, let's teach her a lesson immediately after. And I'm not sure what they expected to happen, like in character, in universe. Like, are you gonna beat up the girl you like? I don't know.
No, they're just classic nice guys. She rejects you once, so you need to like attack her a bit.
Yeah. But
playground rules, I guess.
Yeah.
But I think again it was a plot situation of setting up for Tommy to come in and again show what a guy he is, like the kind of person he is.
Right.
I mean, I think it was a little overboard doing a whole like kata to their face, but the thought and sentiment of like leave her alone was there.
That's so funny. There's like all this karate stuff, and he's like, ooh, and just walk away.
Yeah.
But I think that's the point, right? Is like to what Minas is saying is like showing him being really soft spoken as like a person, but then like going into fighter mode, he's just like Jason, he's like unmatched. Like he's just so powerful as a fighter. So it's like he doesn't need to walk around with that attitude all the time because he knows he's capable. So
and Jason's like that, right?
Yeah.
Like Jason, again, not a negative thing toward Jason because I absolutely adore Jason, as you know. But it is nice that they both have their personalities, and Tommy is just so good. Like when you think about like everything that Tommy has done over the years, it's almost easy to forget like his roots and where he came from and why he was such a popular character. And just watching this, it's like, no, it's so obvious why he was a popular character. Like he was such an awesome addition to the team. Not that the team was missing anything before, but once he came in, it did feel like the team was more complete. And it did, especially in terms of Jason, really balance him out. Like the whole Jason and Tommy relationship is one of the highlights of Power Rangers, I think. Really just switched up the dynamic.
When I was watching it with my wife, she was like, he's evil? I was like, yeah, he started off as evil. He was like, but this guy's been in Power Rangers for years. And I was like, yeah, it's wild. Like, when you think about it like that, it's pretty wild.
Yeah. I look forward to seeing Tommy, because we, like you said, we don't see a lot of the real Tommy in this arc.
Right.
Yeah.
He's like a little bit at the beginning, and then even at the end when he's like broken the curse, he's still like in hero mode, in fighting mode. But I'm excited to see that. Right now, I'm just happy that he and Jason are the only ones that have Ranger voices, because they talk normal, and then as soon as they put their suits on, they're like, "Oh, let's get them, guys!"
yes.
But I think,
and they sound the same too. So you gotta like really pay attention to who's talking.
To Nick's point about what your wife was saying, I think it's another reason. Like, one, the introduction to Tommy is this saga, right? So like that makes him iconic because it just changed the dynamic. Just because up until this point, we've watched 17 episodes before this, and it's like, okay, monster shows up, they fight, they win. Like, there was no real threat, it felt like, right? And at this point. So bringing another person that is clearly formidable and quite honestly almost ruined the Rangers, it's like, okay. And then he becomes a team member. But then on top of that, seeing him go from evil and then this good character, and then, no spoilers, but all he goes through in the rest of the seasons, and then what he goes through in the future, like, it's almost inspirational in a way. Like, he's able to go from this, person who did bad. Yes, he was, brainwashed, he was under a spell, but still he did bad. And then he was able to still like become better. And I think like that's another reason he's so memorable for people, so iconic for people.
Yeah, and one of the first to do it. And I think that's why it was really important in Dino Thunder to have Trent mirror that. Because it's like a kind of it like resonates his earlier days. That is way in the future though, but I did have to bring it up because there is that season does have a lot of parallels. Go ahead, Nick.
My favorite thing about rewatching this is just thinking back when I was like 6 or 7 or something, and I was like, there's a Power Ranger and then a Green Ranger who's just evil. And I was like, I couldn't fathom the idea. I was like, what do you mean there's an evil Power Ranger? That doesn't make any sense in my mind. Yeah. Like, just watching it over again, it's like Tommy becoming the Green Ranger was he literally almost destroyed them single-handedly. But before he does that, he has like this little test for Rita, and he like fights the putties.
Makes no sense.
Even though the first time he already beat the putties once, she knows he can do it.
He took the same test.
He had to beat the putties to become the Ranger, and then beat the putties to get the sword.
Funny thing, when he was fighting the putties, and like we were talking about this before the show, his like hiya is like so iconic to fighting. And that fight is just filled with it. I literally caught a moment where he's like, hiya, and then it just zooms in. Like, he literally just looks at a trash can lid. He goes, hiya, and it just zooms in on the trash can lid. And I was like, okay.
So fun trivia. So in a later season, Power Rangers Dino Thunder, Tommy comes back. And at this point, Power Rangers was taken over by Disney, right? Disney owned Power Rangers.
Yes.
And so they didn't know the show, I guess. So they thought he was swearing, and they asked him to stop with the swearing. He's like, that's not what I'm doing at all.
I don't remember if he did it in Dino Thunder. It's been a while since I watched it, but did he still do it?
I think
did they allow him to keep it in?
I think so. I don't remember honestly that well, but I imagine, because it would sound wrong if he didn't.
It would sound wrong. The most hilarious thing about Tommy is someone's always, okay, it's going to sound weird, someone's always screaming his name. Like, they're always calling out for him. So it's like almost throughout the memory, Kimberly, And then in Elsa in Dino Thunder, someone's always going, Tommy, Tommy, screaming out for him. And it actually is like a joke within my siblings to always just scream out Tommy. I don't know why. It's like stuck through our whole life. So in Last of Us, when Joel screams out Tommy. Tommy, no! Bring it all together. Yeah, Power Rangers seeps into everything.
I mean, and I don't want to get too ahead, but I think part of the reason that is because the showrunners realized like how popular he was, and then almost got to the point of overboard with like it's the Tommy Oliver show, and I'm like, all right, I like Tommy, but there are other people. Let's give them some. But it became a lot of focus on him. Like he gets most of the character development in these early seasons and stuff.
Yeah,
or character stories, not even development, but just like things.
So he gets the power coin. Rita's still not touching the ground. She's like on top of the tower. She's on top of the building. Yeah. She's on top of the tower. And then they do the test. He becomes
the
green,
and then he becomes a Green Ranger.
Yeah, she knew his name, right? She knew that was Tommy. Like she knew. Yeah, she's just like very intimate with these Rangers,
watches
right?
them all the time.
Yeah, she watches them and she calls them by their first name.
I mean, look, really her plan worked. She observed a karate tournament. And she said, hey, this is how I'm going to screw with them this time. I'm going to take that guy who will almost beat Jason and make him an evil ranger. Like,
That's the best plan.
Yeah.
It's still the penis of
Rita. And it's hilarious that Kimberly's first reaction to Tommy is almost exactly the same as Rita's first reaction to Tommy. They're both like, ooh,
look at that
who
guy.
is that?
Yeah, that is true, yeah. She did the whole like looking, and then she steps away from the telescope, and she's like, who's that?
It's so funny when Tommy becomes like under Rita's spell because he becomes like the biggest simp in the world.
Yeah.
Like,
oh my god.
I must obey my Empress.
Rita.
Yes,
my her.
Oh my god,
funny.
he's so devoted.
It's the best when he goes to Zordon and he gets into the command center and he's like,
yes.
Zordon's like, Tommy, you can break the spell. He's like, yeah, right, old man. I must do this for my Empress. And I'm like, wow, that's devotion.
My queen.
Yeah.
My queen.
Also, his laugh, the evil, like the Green Ranger laugh is.
Yeah, he's really good at that.
Yeah. And this is his first showing. That's the other thing I think is like usually we see like, especially with Power Rangers, it's such a weird show that I feel like the cast has to get accustomed to like what it is to be a Ranger, to be a character on that. But like Jason David Frank, to his credit, like just grabbed on. He was just like in it and he just sold it really well from the beginning.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I would argue his acting is more over the top than any of the other Rangers.
It is.
I think he's the one who coined the corny Power Ranger acting, if anything.
Oh, it is.
Like, I think before then it was kind of more okay.
For sure.
Yeah.
But I'm like he dove into it, whether good or bad. Like he was just like, okay, I'm gonna be this evil guy. I'm gonna be this very cartoonish villain and have this over the top laugh and like Nick said, just like always saying my Empress with such energy,
Yeah, such vigor.
Oh yeah.
My Empress.
He was looking for good work. He was looking for work for the rest of his life. He was like, I need to get everything for this.
And I think like Goldar got jealous. He's like, no, she's my Empress.
Empress, yes. Oh my god.
Goldar. So first of all, Goldar never wins.
No.
Okay?
No.
I don't know why they even bother bringing Goldar into anything. So the first thing is she goes, okay, I'm going to kidnap Tommy and then I'm going to send Goldar down.
Mm-hmm.
Why? He sucks.
I don't know.
When
make Goldar big just in case.
Yeah. So another thing I noticed is the Rangers call their suits costumes. They don't call them suits. Isn't that interesting?
Mm-hmm.
It's almost I thought that was weird.
I've thought a lot about the mechanics of like morphing and like because morphing is like implies that they transform physically.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? And it's
Which
not
it kinda
uncommon.
looks like they do.
It kind of does look like they do.
Well, because they're
also,
switching to a different show, but
yes.
Yeah.
But also it's also in the idea that like some people who are Rangers that aren't human turn into a human form.
They do, and some kids turn into adults,
and then some kids turn into adults. They Shazam it. They just Shazam up.
Yeah.
The other thing I think is, I know they've never said this, but I assume that they like their physical makeup changes because they do become stronger and like their power is greater, right? Once they morph. So I do think there's a physical, like genetic, which is kind of messed up. Like Zordon's just tampering with their DNA willy-nilly, you know? But I think that's also what is implied with the. I mean, I think for the showrunners, the morphing is them becoming wearing the suits.
Rangers,
but like in
I
canon universe, I think it's
like semantics. Really,
it is
for the terms that they use.
So, two things about morphing that I was thinking about. So at the end, they don't say let's demorph when they turn back into humans. They say let's morph. So it's morphing to go into being a ranger and morphing to also turn back to humans.
I
to morph
don't remember the term demorph at all. Have they used that yet?
No,
but I think like in human nature, you would call it demorphing, right?
Other seasons say power down.
They do power down.
So they say power down, but like they said morph. I noticed that too. I was like, wait, you're not. I mean, I guess you're morphing
from one. Are you in a constant state of morphing?
Right. It's so interesting too because of the introduction of the power grid, and it's like its own universe. So what that implies, I think, is that the time in the morphing grid also isn't equivalent to the time in the real life, because when they morph, when they're doing those morphic sequence and they're jumping around, whatever, like we see that. But then in later episodes, sometimes they're running and they jump and then they're immediately a Power Ranger.
Yes.
So I think it is heavily implied that the morphing time is completely like in the morphing grid. Like that whole sequence happens in morphing grid time, which explains why like the monsters aren't like just waiting around waiting for them to morph. It literally is seconds in real life time.
Right.
Gotcha.
You know how like Marvel has like their multiverse, quantum, whatever,
mumbo
jumbo science. It's literally the same thing for Power Rangers. Like, the morphing grid is the same thing. It's access to like different timelines. It's access to different universes. It's access to power structures, like whatever. Like it's literally the Deus Ex Machina of the Power Ranger world. And I think the last 20 episodes we've watched, it's just like the morphing grid can do that. And like, oh, okay, the morphing grid can do that. It can do literally anything.
Yeah, it's the Force. Whatever
it's essentially the Force.
Choose any universe and like whatever universal power that exists. It's the same thing. Like it's the same thing. It works. Like, and you'll see in later seasons, it gets even more outlandish in later seasons where it's just like people get brought back to life, and I'm just like, oh yeah, okay, I guess the morphing grid said you deserve to come back. I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird to think about because does that mean like when people die they just go to a different dimension or something? Because Zordon is also locked somewhere else, right? Like, and this is the first time we really see the mention of like, oh, let's locate him to bring him back to communicate to this world, right? It's really like, where is he? And then Alpha knows the sector of where Zordon, the approximate location of Zordon, right? So he knows which universe he's in. He knows what kind of area he's in. Really just needs to like lock onto him. And then as we...
Oh, I was just going to say, I think it's like the Force in Star Wars, where like if you attune yourself to the grid, then when you die, you become part of the grid.
Yeah.
Like, you need to like meditate on it or be a Power Ranger for a certain amount of time.
Right.
Yeah, there's been instances in the comic where Zordon has met himself from a different timeline and or a different universe.
Yeah.
And that's been wild. Like,
that's exciting.
Also, like for anybody who wants to get into the Boom comics, you can start like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers #1 right now. After this one, and that's like where it starts off essentially, like Tommy joining the team, and then that whole dynamic kind of changes. So it's a good jump off point if you guys were like watching the show and then you're like, oh, I want to read the comics. It's like
right.
So
after this episode, go get that comic.
Back to the saga, right? I think also another iconic thing is Tommy's Green Ranger suit costume. Like,
yes,
the shield makes such a difference, and it is one of the coolest things. It's so simple, but it's so cool. I can't explain how awesome I think the shield looks. And in other episodes, when he gives it to other Rangers, amazing.
Yeah, it's just something that is accent, like it's an accent on the outfit, because otherwise it's just spandex, right?
Yes.
So it really does like bring out the suit and the highest qualities of the suit. This
the difference between the U.S. suit and the Japanese suit is like miles apart.
Yeah,
though.
astronomically different. Yeah.
I think in this was it in this season, or I think it was in like another season where they show the Green Ranger. They don't have the proper shield or something. Like they had to replicate their own, and it's like not the same material or whatever. Because like I didn't notice, but I've watched a lot of Ranger analysis videos on YouTube and stuff, and people have pointed out that like, oh, that wasn't the same shield, or like it's not. It's interesting because like they try to borrow as much as they can, I guess, from props wise, but can't do everything.
Yeah, and I think Scorpina eventually gets an American actress as well, if I remember correctly, because she interacts with like the unmorphed Rangers a lot in the future. So seeing her for the first time here, I think because I was so used to her like talking to the Rangers and stuff, I was a little bit taken aback that she was also a part of the original Japanese footage lore, which I guess it does make sense. But it's because she's so like in the future, she's so integrated with the Rangers. I was just like, oh wait. And also her dubbing, like her voice dubbing was almost exactly to what she was saying.
Good.
Yeah, I was kind of shocked about that too. So I was like, no, wait, is this an American actor? No, it's not. It is the Japanese. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really interesting. What did you think about Scorpina, Gil?
I'm excited. I think when we decided to start this podcast, it was on a TikTok live, and you and Nov were talking about the costumes that different Power Rangers villains had, and I think Scorpina was one of them.
Yeah.
So now we finally get to see her in action. She's like Rita's college roommate or something.
Yeah, that was so funny. He's like, oh, my old friend Scorpina. I was like, she just has friends and she calls in favors to come in.
Yeah.
There was an episode where her whole
them too,
complaint
right?
is that she doesn't have friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's like, my friend Scorpina, and then she's like looking in the mirror and she's like, oh, she's kind of cute. Like literally says she's kind of cute. That's quoted from the show. Yeah. And then she's like, but am I prettier?
Can you imagine that phone call? She's like, I'm about to take over Earth. You better get down here and be part of this, or I'm gonna do it all by myself. It's so funny.
Yeah, she really pulled out all the stops. Like she was like smack, smack, smack. And I remember now,
right?
I was quite stressed out as a kid when I was watching it, especially when Jason was one-on-one with Goldar. Even now, even though I knew what happened, that really stressed me out. I'm like, I'm stressed for you, Jason.
Just to pull back a little bit. So this is the first issue I have with Rita's plan. She just decides to let Tommy go back to Earth. And I'm like, he's under mind control. What does he have to do there?
Yeah.
Like,
he has to break Kimberly's heart.
It's so mean.
Vital importance that Kimberly feels sad.
So messed up.
To be fair, he was supposed to hang out with Jason.
Yeah.
And then zapped him into that cage.
Oh, yes,
so I think that's useful. That's a useful reason to send him back to Earth.
That
he can like covertly get to the Rangers while they're not powered up.
Yeah.
What did
he
she
only
say to
did
Kimberly?
it once.
He's the whole world doesn't.
Yeah, not everything.
Yeah. So she's like, I got things going on, and you know what? When he was saying it, I'm like, that kind of makes sense. Like,
I was like, I wrote here my notes. I was like, yeah, honestly, she had it coming at this point. Like, she had it coming a little bit,
just a little. I mean, he would never like. He ends up being the quintessential perfect boyfriend, right? Like,
right.
Oh, sorry, spoiler. I mean, you can tell they're flirty. Yeah. Jason's out of the picture. It doesn't even think about Jason anymore. It's gone. It's Tommy and Kimberly show. But yeah, he ends up being like so good as a boyfriend. But going back to Jason, I was extremely stressed for him. And I think like the somberness of the show is really highlighted when Zach is the one who has to do the morphing call because Jason's not there. And the way Zach says it's morphing time is so sad and so stressed. Like legitimately, he's just like, all right, it's morphing time. And I thought that was really neat. I think like that actor really read the room with that one.
Yeah.
With Jason like being stressed. And like there's that scene where he's like going at it at that sandbag, right? And he's just angry, and he's like, I can't get the Green Ranger out of my mind. And it was kind of I had this thought, and I was like, maybe he really was upset about ending in a draw with Tommy, you know? Because it's like, what if he's just taking it out on this like Green Ranger guy? Because it's like I think it's also like good to see that he has weakness because he's not a perfect dude, right?
Okay.
Even in those moments, even those human moments where it's like, yeah, it's just a contest, yeah, it's just a record, yeah, it's just this. Like it's like no, like this one time it's really important. It's like bothering him. It's like, hey, I lost to this guy. How could I just lose? And it's like it's eating away at him, and I think that's really cool to see.
I think also that scene is very important because we have seen in snippets in the past that Jason does have a lot of issues with anger and a lot of strength to try to control it, right? Like it feels like it takes all his will to control his anger. And I think when so that was an important scene because again, he's like really close to slipping. And then when he's with Goldar, you can just feel it pent up. You can feel his rage pent up. And he's scared and he's stressed, but he's angry. And like when Goldar is like taunting him, he just like goes at him. Jason just like lashes out at Goldar.
Yeah. But I think Jason learns his lesson with Goldar because he starts off like trying to grab the Morpher, trying to communicate, trying to fight, screaming before he attacks Goldar and just like letting all the rage out. But the way that he defeats Goldar, or I guess escapes Goldar, is by staying still, by hiding, by doing something that is not characteristic of him at all. Right? He's almost becoming Billy in that moment. And he's like, okay, I recognize that I have a problem and my normal way of dealing with it is not going to help me in this situation. I need to try something else.
Yeah.
Jason, man. This is why we love him.
They really stacked the deck against the Rangers in a way that like it's one thing if one of those things happened, right? Like, okay, if Jason gets kidnapped, you know, we've kind of seen that though. Actually, like Kimberly was unavailable in like the last episode or whatever. But then like, okay, and then Alpha's out of commission, and then Zordon's gone, and they can't communicate, they can't teleport, like they don't know who this Green Ranger is who whooped them. Like there's so much going on in those first 3 episodes that like is almost like it piles on, and you really like Jason eventually escaping, them actually getting Jason was like the big win that they needed, because otherwise they were just like morale wise they were just like what do we do?
And
can you imagine being in your Megazord and then you just get tossed out by one dude?
One Ranger.
By one dude.
He tries to fight him with his sword, single-handedly.
Can we also he opens the door to the cockpit and just rocks Trini. Like, it's just... I died. The way he just threw a big punch, I was like, oh my god. But yeah, like, just taking over your Megazord, like... And then, again, you can't enter the command center unless you have a power coin. So it's, again, like, what is going on? How could this even happen, right? And then, I mean, admittedly, Alpha wasn't too damaged. He just put a disc in him. I was just like, oh, that's great. Like, it wasn't the...
I love that Alpha has a CD-ROM drive.
I know, right?
Why? Like a robot from a different dimension, but he's got a CD-ROM drive.
Well, he loves his music. That's why he's always like, dude, do that, you know?
Like,
but even
he always likes to dance.
Yeah. But even then, like, Alpha was still, like, I guess it was a virus that still infected him. So even though they removed it, he was still... CD. Yeah, but he was still like he was still not fully operational. So there was still like so many things going on, and it wasn't something that especially Jason can just punch his way out of.
No,
right.
True. My biggest gripe with Rita's plan, the Megazord is solar powered.
Yes. Just like the sword.
Since when?
Well, no, because I'm
attack at nighttime? Question mark.
That's
like wait till like a solar eclipse when you can just
all these
attack at night.
Megazords sleep in caves and volcanoes? And for some reason.
That was so weird. And then they never talk about it again.
Yeah,
but that scene where the Zords do get pummeled broke my heart. You can hear them screaming in pain. Screaming. The robot Zords. They're like,
for sure. And like stuff that happens in future seasons and stuff, you really see that there's a connection to these Zords that like is, I kind of feel like unique to this particular set of Rangers, because I feel like future Rangers, they have their connection, but it doesn't feel the same. I don't know why. It's just like there's a particular ending. There's a particular thing that happens. I don't want to spoil anything to kill, but like that's iconic to me too. Like but the relationship that the Rangers have with their Zords is like really, really powerful, honestly.
Yeah,
it is.
it's my favorite trope in media and TV. This like connection between like pilot and machine. So it's like this. Seeing the Zord, even though it's like like this is like the first time they kind of lose. They don't really tell you if like they get destroyed or anything, because they were like falling in the volcano, and I was like, don't they just live in volcanoes? Like, are they just
they come out of a volcano
later?
They come out, but then
they come out of the volcano later. But I was like, seems like they're just going back.
But there's like a low angle shot where like all the Rangers are like, oh, it's like Rita destroyed a part of us, and like when we needed them most, we don't have them anymore. So that sort of hammered it home.
Yeah.
But I do have a lighter question about the Megazord.
Yes, please.
How did they make the Megazord without Jason?
So it is canonically explained that you can control other members' Megazords.
Okay.
It's not like a singularly exclusive thing all the time. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. I'm
just imagining like Zach coming in on the Mastodon and then getting out and running into the T-Rex.
Honestly, I feel like Zach filled in a lot, in this moment of like no Jason, and like he's trying to stay positive, even like through Kim's like boy trouble. He's like, it's okay, come on, it's fine. We got bigger problems.
Oh my god, on the buggy, like when they're flying toward it, and they're literally just talking about Tommy. It's so cute, like really just hones in on like real life, trying to like deal with relationships as a teenager, and also deal with like the world ending, which is, it's so fun, and I like to see them kind of like put that all together. But so I have a couple of notes here. The first one, I noticed that when everyone returns, Jason's back, and they need Zordon for answers. And I'm going to use need in quotation marks, because as usual, Zordon doesn't know anything. And so they came to the same conclusions as Zordon normally would, right? Yes. Like they look at Tommy and they're like, oh, he must be under a spell. You have no indication of what like that, like other than the fact that I liked him when I saw him. Right. That's the only thing that
he
they
also
have.
shot lasers out of his eyes, so that's a pretty strong indicator.
Yeah,
that's true. Which is so funny, because that scene when he first gets kidnapped and he comes back to Earth, and Bulk and Skull see him in the alley. I'm like, Bulk and Skull, you're running from them at school. Why are you facing him now alone?
Because they're brave. They're honestly, they're the brave ones. Okay,
this is like the bench press champion.
Yeah, exactly. These teenagers that have the ability to turn into superheroes whenever they want, they're like whatever. But Bulk and Skull, they're like, you know what? Challenge at every corner.
Yeah.
Okay. Like today could be my day. You just don't know it yet. That's the vibe they live by.
I think they're like one of the most people who get caught into the antics of the Rangers anyway. So really, I feel like their level of fear decreases over time, because it's almost like they still act panic, but it's like at a certain point, like how many times are we going to get sucked into these Ranger antics?
Yeah.
It's so funny, especially with the bus. As soon as I saw them go in the bus, I'm like, they only did this because apparently in the Japanese footage there's going to be a bus there.
There's going to be a bus.
I was going to ask, are there more people in the bus in the Japanese version?
I have no clue.
We don't watch.
I
don't watch
like a full bus.
Yeah,
no
I would imagine. Honestly, I would.
It's funny because they mentioned, so they're like, oh no, civilians, and Goldar's like, these are your friends.
Yeah,
the book they specifically said friends.
This is like.
Because they always hang out together.
Goldar's really going for their throats. It's like, it's not just anybody. It's the people you probably care about, maybe.
Maybe. And it's like Kimberly's uncle. These are your friends.
Yeah. I mean, at that point, they are, like, yes, they have a weird relationship, but, like, they're friends, you know? Like, I think, honestly, I think if Bulk and Skull were just, particularly Bulk, were just, like, nicer, they'd be like really good friends, you know, like this they are friends, but like there's that dynamic because Bulk is, you know, kind of a bully and he's mean and stuff like that, but I think they see that like they're not terrible, they're just like annoying, they're like nuisances, you know, they're just like, so
that's like, it's just like they become almost inseparable, like Sorry, Nick, you're gonna say something?
Oh, just like going back to Zordon, like everyone, they come to the same conclusions as Zordon. There is one line, like they have a small shred of doubt, like right at the beginning when the Green Ranger comes in, and Jason's like, Zordon's never mentioned a Green Ranger before,
Right.
and it's like if they're looking up to this figure that's supposed to be like their guiding force. And then there's this big secret that just shows up out of nowhere, and you're like, "You're telling me there's a 6 power coin? I'd be mad. I'd be pissed.
Yeah.
I'd be so upset."
When would that come up in conversation?
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like
you guys are the 5 Power Rangers. Also, maybe there's a 6
one
somewhere
that might become a problem later.
Who knows?
Yeah, they don't hang out, right? Like they don't just other than Zach and Alpha, they dance with each other, but they don't like hang out and chat and say this is what my life was like before, like any of that. They only ever talk in emergency situations. So unless it gets brought up, then I don't think there's a reason for it to bring that. Yeah.
So what do Zordon and Alpha do when the Power Rangers are not there? Because we get one scene in this arc where Zordon's like, "All right, Alpha, let's take a nap."
Essentially, that's basically what they do.
I think Zordon at least is probably constantly scanning and observing, like Nick was saying, like,
he's really bad.
He's paranoid, so he's just like keeping attention to everything. That's why he knows where all this stuff is. Like even if he doesn't really like have like actual knowledge to give, he's just like, well, I've spent the last like 2 days and I found this, squash. You can go get it. Like he knows where it is because that's all he does. He's just like preparing for another inevitable attack by Rita. That's my guess.
Yeah,
sure. I think
they just like hang out.
Command center is like made of like Earth technology,
Mm-hmm.
and Alpha just has to like continuously maintain it because it's like tapping into the power or tapping into the morphing grid. Because Billy's able to repair it, and he's like, these wires are fried. And I was like, Billy, that is the most logical thing you've ever said, ever.
Well,
the wires are fried.
Right before that, he said he was going to use a subatomic manipulator.
Yes, he did. He also said like
the subatomic manipulator.
he said something about positive neutrons or something as well.
Yeah.
Where he's just like moving wires around.
And the most normal thing was like, we got to fix these wires. I was like, this guy's onto something this time.
Yeah. You're doing it, Billy.
It makes sense because Tommy just pulled out all the wires.
Yeah.
So like, okay, put the wires back.
That's what I was gonna say. I was like, I mean, all Tommy did was rip out the wires, which I understand would like reduce, like mess the power, but like. I don't know. It seemed to have such a serious effect on the command center, just ripping out these wires. I'm like, I guess there were a lot of wires, so that's why.
Billy's got like all this mumbo jumbo, and he's like, I just gotta go to Radio Shack, and I think I can fix it.
Yeah.
Good.
Also, does the command center have walls? Because this entire time, I thought it was like a black room with sparkling lights on the side, but then they just kind of drive straight into it.
I want to say
they enter through the tube. The chimney.
Tube. But I want to say there's other. I'm either imagining it, but I feel like there's in the future there's like another chamber in the command center.
Okay.
Am I crazy?
There are.
No, because there's a scene where they looked. Okay, spoiler.
Okay.
No, I'm not going to say it. There's a scene where they look down.
You're right, Nick. You're right.
Yeah. But there are.
It's a big spoiler, so I can't say it.
There are chambers it's actually a building, and I think there are walls against whatever the black fade is around the command center.
Okay. It's just, I'm just making sure because you can see the flying car coming in from space, and nothing opens, nothing like changes, nothing like shifts. It just lands in the command center.
Yeah.
Well,
like,
it's like one of
this
those
is an open air room.
Assumptions that you just like, because you know what I noticed, and this is like something I caught in the last couple episodes, is like whenever they say it's morphin time, they just put their hands behind their back, right? They actually don't pull out the morph. At least in these seasons, in the last episodes I've seen, they don't actually pull out the morphers at all. But in the case that Jason was missing his morph, he like went to go grab it, and it wasn't there. So I'm like, oh, this isn't just like hammer space. Like you just don't. It just doesn't show up out of nowhere. Like
they keep it strapped.
Carried on their mouth.
It's strapped on them. But then I'm thinking like, there's
Sorry, go ahead.
Jason just like wears tank tops all the time. So I'm like, where is he hiding this thing?
Right? Okay, so in the beginning of this episode, and I actually made a note of this, he's wearing these pants with these giant pockets. And he turns around and he just puts his hands in the pockets. I don't know why I think it's so funny. And he starts walking away.
Right. He's just ready. That's why he keeps his morpher.
And these giant pockets, they're so huge. Oh my god. I'm sorry, I'm crying. I thought it was so funny.
I've seen that before. Any girl that has a dress that has pockets has done that.
Yes.
Just go elbow deep into the pockets and walk away.
But that's what I mean. Like, these kids are so fashionable. Can you imagine there's just a morpher strapped behind them? Like, I can imagine people looking at Billy and they're like, yeah, Billy's doing some weird thing again. But like the rest of them, it's like, why is there a hunk of metal on the back of their belts?
You know what? We have them, right? Like me and Nuv definitely have it. I don't know if you do.
I have one.
I've tried wearing them when I first bought it. They are heavy. Like it's like it was. I had to stop because it was pulling my pants down. Even though I put it on my belt buckle, and it's chunky. Yeah. It's not something you just can wear. It's huge.
You just need a really, really tight belt like Jason.
Yeah.
Keep it up.
Yes.
So funny. It's true. It's strange. Eventually, we start seeing them pull out the morpher, and they do weird stuff with their hands too. This is the first time we actually see the beginnings of that. So they kind of did this for morphing time, which they haven't done before. This is the first time. Eventually, they start doing the flip like that. But this is the first time they did like a forward thing with the morph, and I noticed that. Cool. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I wanted to go back to the Jason and Goldar fight.
Oh, yes.
Like, I was talking about this in some earlier episode we were talking about, because this is what I remember is Jason and Goldar in the dark dimension, and just like
it's very iconic in my mind.
And it happens a couple of times, so maybe that's why. But like, this is the threat of him not having his morpher, and like Goldar really just having fun, just having so much fun.
It feels like a long rivalry. Finally, like. For Goldar, this is it, right? Like, Jason is his one. And then he pushes him against the wall, is choking him. He's like, Rita has given to me as a prize. You are my prize. Yeah. Pushes him down to the ground. And then Tommy shows up and say, now it's my turn. So again, this is like Goldar really getting shafted by Rita, which, you know, in future episodes, you can see this slipping. Like the relationship between Rita and Goldar. And what makes it worse is when Tommy has Jason on the ground and he goes through this whole villain monologue, which allows Jason to escape. Goldar's like, this is your fault. And he's right.
It's the best. It's the best.
This is your fault.
He literally is just like, first of all, he has plausible deniability that he didn't screw up because he wasn't there.
He wasn't there.
Like, he toyed with Jason just as much and could have ended him at any moment, but he didn't. Right. But because Tommy was the one who was on watch when Jason got away, he's just like, look at you idiot, you screwed up. I love it.
Monologues. Goldar's monologues are so runny and like so nonsensical. He's like, Rita's given you to me, and now I will choose to end you, or I won't, or maybe we'll keep going, or not. It's like, God. I know we talked about the voice in previous episodes. This is the one that's like, this is the one that sticks the most because it's just so graggly, and it's like. It's different from the ones. I don't know if it's the same voice actor, but this is the more iconic version of Goldar that I remember, and it seems kind of like buffoonish. But like he just seems like kind of an idiot.
Right?
It's
weird because it's like it's intimidating, but I think then the more you see Goldar throughout the season, and like the more he fails and like has to look like such a just like. Not lost, but like anytime he gets berated by Rita, it's just like the voice loses its edge each time. So even though it's this gravelly, growly like voice that should be intimidating, because he's always like looking like a clown, it's just like
it looks so funny. It's so iconic.
Goldar is not good. He's not a good henchman.
He's a terrible henchman.
Squat and Babu do more damage to the Power Rangers than Goldar does. Which is crazy.
another comic book fact, that whole cage area is his dimension.
Ooh.
So he owns
Okay.
that's his that's where he kind of hangs out.
Nice.
Yeah.
So like in the comics, after he loses, so the comics picks up right after this saga. And as punishment, this isn't Rita's punishment. He imposes his own punishment. He's like, for losing the Green Ranger, I'm sitting in my own dungeon until Rita needs me. That's his punishment.
Wow.
So when Rita captures one of the Rangers in the comic books, he tells Goldar, keep him in your chamber. So like it's just him and Goldar, and it's Goldar and Billy just hanging out like in the cage. They're not fighting or anything. And Billy's like, so are we gonna like tussle or something? And Goldar's like, no, because really like I'm being punished right now. And he's like, by who? Like, by myself. This is my dimension.
So funny.
And Billy's like, so you could just leave? And he's like, yeah, I can totally just leave.
Nick, I had a question because
Yes.
there's, based on design and everything, it seems like there's some sort of connection / relationship with Scorpina and Goldar, but it's never really talked about in the show. So I don't know if they ever touch upon it in the comics. Because like
they have a relation. Well, in the comics, they're just they're goons.
Okay.
Essentially, separate goons. I think in the Japanese show they have like a relationship.
that would make
I think
sense.
there's something going on there. I don't know if anyone caught it, but there's like when they bring in Scorpina, you actually see her hand around like Goldar's waist. It's like right in the corner.
Yeah.
I think there's something that goes on.
They had some banter while they
Right,
were
and even
Yeah.
Goldar says now that we're together again. So I'm like, oh,
Yeah, he did say that.
what does that mean?
Yeah.
Like, what was your past? So it's just like, and like she has gold armor. Like it all looks very similar. And she turns into a monster when she gets big too. Like so, it kind of fits. So it was just I was curious if the comics ever touch upon anything like that.
What I think is pretty notable, at least like in this conversation of like villains, especially for like the American television show, is that Rita is like the first, since she's like the first big bad, she doesn't have a male counterpart until later, right? But every person after, I think, except in space, if there's a female, in space and rescue, but every time after that, they always add a male counterpart villain. I don't know why.
Divatox?
No, Divatox. No, that one too. So Turbo, In Space, and Zeo, I think, like kind of
Not
do with
Zeo.
the female villains. Not Zeo.
No,
Doesn't
Zeo's
Zeo
King
have-
Mondo.
King Mondo, yeah. But like for Time Force, like they just throw in. What's his name? The dad. Oh my god.
No, but he's the main villain.
Rancic. No,
Rancic.
Rancic. Yeah.
Yeah, Rancic. Because Rancic doesn't exist in Japan.
Oh yeah. He's
I don't think.
Yes, correct.
But his daughter does, because there's like a pink-haired villain in the show. They do this. I don't know why they do this, because Zed's like an American villain.
Yep.
Later on.
Yep.
So it's very
Zed's
strange.
Oh, no, that makes sense. Okay, it's all coming together.
It's all coming together,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Zed and
Yeah.
Rancic are American made, which
starts
is
clicking.
Yeah.
wild. Like, because those two are pretty awesome villains.
Oh God, I love them.
Yeah.
Greatest love story in the history of love
Honestly,
stories.
I want
Like,
a whole. Well, okay. Currently in the comics, they're like focusing on Rita's life right now, and it's like, oh, it's so good because like her life is just so dramatic.
So
I believe it.
I get like the Google, news stuff, and apparently Zed became a Power Ranger in the comics.
Yes, this happened literally.
Yeah, it's like
last
really
week.
new.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, he has access to the morphing grid,
He's
so
a
it's
ranger.
Sad.
essentially a ranger.
He's a ranger.
This is the comic books get wild.
But yeah,
funny.
back to the show.
Back to the show.
I think also that, as the whole the Zord being powered by the sun, whatever. But like, again, that fight like is 3-on-1, and the Zord is just getting tossed around, like every which way, getting hit. Again, you're just like, this really powerful machine that again has helped the Rangers in so many predicaments is just, it's again, they're on the back foot for so much of this saga that you're just like, it's very, it's so intense and so interesting because we've never seen the Rangers in such a precarious situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That scene too was so visually stunning, right? Just like everybody's so giant and like fighting each other. I love that. Yeah, it's like I don't know, because when you see Tommy being big as well, it's like, and Scorpina, when you see them as giant people, it's just different. It just hits different.
It is just,
Yeah.
it just is
Yeah.
different.
Oh yeah, especially a ranger.
Yeah, I was like, what? They could do that?
Yeah.
It sounds like that could happen.
And going against a Megazord,
real
like
morphing.
yeah,
That's real morphing.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Tommy had, I guess it was through Rita, but Tommy had powers that we never see again. Like growing
he
big.
does
He does a Kamehameha.
Yeah.
It's a Kamehameha that he never does ever again.
I was like,
Yeah.
oh, and then I thought about it, I was like, okay, maybe it was through Rita and her spell or something like that, because like that's clearly an evil thing to do. Good guys can't just do Kamehamehas, I guess, in Power Rangers
Yeah.
at least. So
I think when they fought the Green Ranger 2, this is the first time we see the Mastodon shield.
yeah,
Like, because they
Yeah.
repel something
Yep.
with whatever he's shooting.
yeah,
But it was cool to see that. I thought it was going to be having like a more iconic moment than just this.
yeah.
But it was cool to see. That was fun to see.
Akil, what did
Yeah.
you think of? Because speaking of iconic, what did you think of the Dragon Flute and the Dragon Zord?
Dragon Zord, I love. That was just Mecha Godzilla.
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
here for
Yes.
it. The Dragon Flute was a trumpet.
No, no.
It is a flute.
I forgot
It's
to
a
bring
dagger.
mine.
I
I
know
saw-
it's a flute, but it does not sound like a
I
flute.
know.
Have you ever seen that meme, the Green Ranger? It's a dagger that's also a flute that sounds like a synthesizer. Like, that's basically what it is.
That's great.
Yeah.
I love that the different, I guess, spells or summonings or whatever the dagger had also had different tunes. It was like I was
Yes.
watching Ocarina of Time. It was really nice.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
dagger. I have a replica of that dagger
Me
as
too.
well.
I have a
Same.
can you
It-
play
I
it?
meant to. I forgot
No.
about it, but I meant to
Yeah.
bring it. Yeah,
All three of you have that dagger.
yeah.
God,
Yeah.
you don't have that dagger. That dagger is so iconic.
It
I
is
have that
iconic.
dagger.
I don't
Honestly-
have Saba though.
You know what's
I was-
funny?
I
I
have
do.
Saba.
I do.
You guys win.
And
You
that
guys are
dagger,
winning.
Hold on.
I do think it's. I thought it was gonna be more. Like the scene of him getting the dagger was just gonna be more iconic.
Yeah.
But no, he just gets it and he's like, summon the dragons, or you're like, okay, this is.
So two things with that. One, I don't know if he really ever uses the dragon dagger flute as a weapon. I feel like he rarely ever actually uses it in like future episodes and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like he never really like just uses it, as a weapon.
Even here, he was like playing it while using the sword.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I
he's
remember
not-
he's done it at least once because I do remember him slashing.
Sure.
But it's not
It's
a
minimal.
lot.
Yeah.
It's like maybe once.
Yeah.
Like yeah.
And
And his dagger is $547.
It wasn't that
No,
much.
when we got it, it was $50.
Yeah, it was $50. We're talking about the Lightning Collection, right? The Legacy Collection.
Yeah, Legacy. Yeah.
Yes.
So the other thing is, it's one of my, it's not a huge nitpick or a gripe, but it is a gripe. Is episode 5 resolves so quickly, like
Yeah.
everything just they introduce the Dragon Zord, which I'm like awesome, but it kind of gets put out of commission pretty quickly, and then for whatever reason, Jason, I guess because he jumped out, Tommy's like, okay, I guess I'll leave the Dragon Zord and I'll just join you. And then they fight for like 30 seconds, and then Jason happens to like shoot the sword, and it's over. I was like, that was really
so
quick.
funny. It was like that
Yeah.
scene, that shot. He's just like, he
Yeah.
just takes his little gun. He's like,
Yeah, it was just very quick. And I get it, like, after 4 episodes of like just getting their butts whooped, it kind of makes sense to just like, okay, get it done with. But it was just like, when rewatching it, I was like, whoa, this was very quick. That like everything was fixed. Like Zordon's back.
what I think was weird was like the sword was the connection to the spell,
Yeah.
but the sword was not originally part of the spell.
Of the spell.
So-
Yeah.
Well, it was gonna hold him
Why?
forever. That's what Goldar said. So
Oh,
maybe it was
Oh,
like,
yes, you're correct.
yeah,
Yeah.
I thought that too, and then I was like, I guess it works. I'll buy it. I'll take it. Like, it's not the best.
Okay, so back to what you were saying, I think, Nev, when you were like, oh no, it was Akil? Like, we were like, why didn't Zordon talk about this ranger? What's worse is the ending of this episode 5. The prophecy is now complete.
Yeah.
Yeah. What?
What
sorry?
prophecy?
Hello.
What prophecy? Like,
So
we're
he
just
knew.
Usually you
Yeah.
mention prophecies before they're completed.
See,
So
this
that
goes
you
back
can-
to my
Right.
original argument. He's just keeping things from these Rangers.
I think Zordon is much like for the showrunners, the writers, Zordon is much like Billy, and they're like, we just need him to say something wise, or like very like, ethereal, like like something very like grand. And so like Billy has to talk very smart all the time and say run in a really complicated way. Zordon has to like make these grand statements that make him sound wise and this great mentor, but like what prophecy? There is no prophecy. There's never been any
There's no
prophecy
prophecy.
explored.
Yeah, he probably just said it. They're probably like the Rangers like were like, oh, okay, I guess there's a prophecy. Now there's 6 of you.
That's now, I guess.
And
Yeah.
He just went into the morphing grid and he's like, what happens when there's 6 Power Rangers?
I know.
There's a prophecy.
Prophecy.
Okay.
Oh, this is it. This is the prophecy.
Also, again, with my gripe of episode 5, so they take like 3 minutes to have them morph, do their poses, and then introduce the new Zord, which I love. I love that Dragon Zord combo. Is probably my favorite Megazord combination, and it's used very rarely, sadly. But I don't know, something about the face being inside the head of the Dragon Zord, like it's just all cool. And like Billy and Trini, their Zords are the ones that join, and the weapon. You'll see the weapon in a future episode. It's
And then
dope.
the foot becomes a kneecaps.
Yeah. But like that was like probably 3 minutes that you could have used to like put that story to just like leave the battle lasting just a little longer, so it wasn't like one shot and the Dragon Zord's done. Because for this really iconic Zord to be down in like one strike, I was like, oh, that kind of sucks, So
Yeah.
I mean,
Look how he just like hobbles to the ground too. He just like lays there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just there down, and I'm like,
Uh-huh.
oh, I guess it's done. And like, seeing the morph was fantastic. Obviously, see all 6 of them morph. It's great, but it was also like I just could have. But maybe they were like limited by Sentai footage, so they were just like, we gotta get this
Yeah.
done.
Well, like I was confused because they brought all those Zords together and they didn't do anything.
Yeah.
They were just like, oh look, you guys can do it now. And you're like, oh,
Yeah. Nice.
Right.
okay.
Prophecy is complete. Level up. You
This
get
is
it.
complete.
It's something I feel you could have saved for like a monster that we were struggling with. It's like, oh well, you actually can combine your Zords, and this new
Right.
mode is strong enough to like But they were just like, hey, you got it, go for it.
They do that in previous episodes too. Like up until this point, it's not unheard of for them to do that. It's frustrating for sure, and I understand your gripes, and I also have a gripe with that.
Yeah.
But it is very on par with
With
what Power
we've
Rangers has
seen.
been up to this
Sure.
point. Yeah.
Akil, you said you had like some problems with not problems, but like the transition between episodes. I think it was like
Yes.
episode 4 to 5, and I was like, they couldn't morph for like a minute, and I was like, when did that happen? And I was like,
I wanted to
Oh,
talk
yeah.
about the transition from episode 1.
Okay.
All right, do it.
oh,
Let's do it. Start from the beginning.
Because Jason just kind of looks at the other Power Rangers, and I didn't write down the exact quote, but he basically says, I feel like this is only part 1 of a 5-part series. Like, this is only the beginning of a larger battle.
Yeah, that
Holy
is what he said. He did say
Yeah.
that.
That's so funny.
Oh yeah, and then somebody said, "Why is she retreating?"
Yes.
Like that was actually really smart.
Yeah.
I was like, "Wow, that's insightful." That was Zach who said it. That was in a transition. I just remember that he said that. I'm like, "Whoa."
Yeah.
She retreated
He
quite a
really-
bit, and I didn't get why. I was just like, you're doing really well. Why do you keep calling people
I
back?
can pull him back. Yeah.
Scorpina came back for no reason. Like that was such I don't know if you remember the scene, but like she appeared, she sent the putties, she fought with them for like 12 seconds, and then we cut to Rita, and her and Goldar, Scorpina and Goldar come back out, and she's like, I almost had them. I was like, you did have them. Wait, you did. It's
Yeah.
not you almost, you did. So I was very like, there was some wonky editing in the episodes, like it's minor stuff that you can like gloss over because overall the story is just well told. But I was just like,
Yeah.
since I'm watching it very critically, I'm like, why did she get called back? I don't get it.
Right. Other things that I noticed was like Tommy fighting the putties, and at the very end when he beats them, he's like, "Why me?" And I was like, "Is he having a bad day?
He is probably.
Like his life sucks." Right
You know
now?
what? He's probably like upset he couldn't talk to Kimberly properly. He's like,
Mhm.
"Fuck,
No,
I
probably
messed that
that, the
up."
tie, right? And he's like, "Ah, man,
Yeah, this place
why
sucks.
me, bro?"
I'm just piling up.
You're a
I
new
just moved
kid.
here.
Yeah.
He just moved there, and like suddenly, like the town just like does the rest of the world know what's going on in Angel Grove? I
Yeah,
wonder.
if you don't know, like, why would you move?
Move there.
Chill, girl.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like the Gotham City argument, right? Like, why would anybody live in
Well,
Gotham
the
City?
rent must be astoundingly amazing. It must be
Right.
like,
Like $2.
it's like, oh shit.
I mean, they
okay.
have this thriving community center that, like, they don't pay
Yeah.
anybody other than
I've
Ernie.
seen it.
Or
What's
Ernie.
also funny is Goldar's
Yeah.
attacking the city and they're just watching it on the television. And
Right.
Ernie's like, isn't that just as awful? And Kimberly's like, yeah, that sucks. Anyway, have you seen Tommy?
Right, that also threw me off. Like, I think because it was after the bus thing, right? Like,
Yeah.
everybody
Yes,
ran, everybody
yeah.
left. They dispersed from that space, understandably. Then Goldar left because the Rangers helped, and then everybody's just back. And I was like,
Yeah, it's
everything's
safe now,
fine?
it's fine.
Everything's fine. Like, okay, yeah, it was just this is terrible. These monsters are attacking, but not this section, not today.
It
Like,
happens every week. Like it gets
Right.
old.
They're kind of like,
Yeah.
whatever.
then why they
Then he
run?
does go, thank God for the Power Rangers. He was like, here we go again. Thank God for the Power Rangers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
appreciate
Bulk
that.
and Skull
though.
insert themselves. They're like, no, we're the real heroes here.
Yes. That's the beginnings of, didn't you notice we're always around the Power Rangers?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Didn't you notice that?
The good.
So funny. Was there a scene here where Rita is just taunting people on her unicycle again?
Yes.
Yeah, she's just there,
She's
like
just,
circling.
floating.
Yeah.
She's floating on her unicycle.
Which
What
we
are you gonna
know
do
is
about it? What are you gonna do, huh? Nothing.
She can't touch the
she's
ground.
the best, right? Because she can teleport to Earth. I love that she just like floats on her unicycle.
She's also
It's like-
a master at the floor is lava game because she never touches the dang
Never
floor.
She never touches the ground.
I think in episode 2 she walked on grass.
That's insane.
Right? No, there was
That
one.
is
There was like
amazing.
one episode where she briefly was like on level, like
Yeah.
level ground, but like every
No,
other
you're-
instance.
She was on a
Yeah,
mound
here.
of something.
Oh,
I was
She
like, I
was,
don't know if that
she was
counts.
walking over a hill, and then when we cut back to her, she's standing on top of a rock. I think the hill counts as ground.
Yeah.
This is what we thought. We thought we got her.
Yeah,
She's been on rocks the whole time.
but that one scene with Ernie and everything, as funny as it is, I do like it because, like, hearing him say, like, as a ranger, hearing him say, like, oh, at least we have the Power Rangers. Kim is like, we're not doing well. Like, I don't know, it was a simple but a good moment of, like, again, I don't know if pathos is the right word, but of, like, just letting us into the Rangers' inner
Yeah.
emotion, because Kim's like, yeah, she's not, like, excited to say, because she knows realistically, like, they're failing at this moment. So it was just,
Yeah.
you know, as, like, silly as it can be, is just, like, actually a really well done moment for, like, us
It
to
is, yeah.
feel
And they
the
all
Rangers.
want to give up at a certain point. Like,
Yeah.
literally, just like, what do we do now? Like, we're out of options.
Yeah.
Was Jason there when they wanted to give up? Because I don't think Jason
Yes.
would let that happen.
No,
No.
he spoke out. He was like, "Come on,
Yeah.
Rangers, we can't."
Oh yes, of course. I knew he wouldn't let that happen. Not my Jason.
I knew all of them have like some part to play. Like even Billy like fixes command center. Trini doesn't do a lot.
Right.
Trini is kind of just on the back burner for this whole arc.
It's true.
Which the only thing I literally only remember her doing anything is like at the very beginning, where she's like, "Oh, you have to focus your body and mind when you're in this fight," and I was like, "Okay, that might come back." Never comes back. It never comes back. And then I think she's part of the conversation of like why Scorpina and like all of them keep pulling back. Other than that, she doesn't really like contribute
Right.
a lot.
Yeah,
I
And
mean,
neither
she's
does Kimberly, other than like to the fact that she is the only connection to Tommy.
Tommy, yeah,
She doesn't do much, and nobody knows that Tommy is the connecting factor here.
yeah.
right.
It's almost worse because they don't know that it's Tommy. Through the whole thing, she's like, "But Tommy," like, you know,
Yeah.
it's like that's not the time. I mean, I know I liked it on the outside. Like, I love seeing that stuff. But if I were a ranger, I'd be like, you know, we have serious business here.
Yeah.
Like, don't worry about Tommy
Zach,
later.
Zach was on her a little bit in the cars. Like, you know, hey, your boy Troubles, they that sucks, but we gotta really focus on something else.
I mean, I think I do. Sorry, were you gonna say something, Akil?
Oh, I was just gonna say when they do find out it's Tommy, they're like, "How could Tommy do this to us?"
Yeah.
Like Tommy just showed up. He was mean to you, and you saw him fight Jason the same way that the Green Ranger fought Jason. So like, of course it's Tommy.
Yeah. I know, that's why it's funny too, because they're like, he has to be under a spell. Like, why does he like, how do you know he's not just a jerk? Right? Because he gave googly eyes to Kimberly for a second, and then the next day he was mean. That sounds like a normal dude, if anything.
Like, to his credit, he was polite to Jason before zapping him into the astral plane.
Right. Yeah, he was.
They apparently made a plan to work out together. So like, I guess off-screen stuff took place that we don't know of.
That we don't know.
I guess. So really, Tommy's just a flake. He's not evil.
This is probably going to be counter to what I said earlier, because I was like, maybe Jason like really just hates if he lost to Tommy. Maybe him finding out that it was Tommy was like a big relief. He's like, oh man, of course it had to be that guy. Like, literally, if it was anybody else, I'd be so pissed.
Yeah,
I know, because
it's like beat up by 2 people in one day.
I know.
Going back to Minhas, going back to what you were saying about Kim, I found it funny because when she asked Tommy to hang out, she said, "Oh, we're meeting at a couple of us are meeting together at the youth center." And then when she was complaining to Zach, she was like, or telling the Rangers, she was like, "Tommy didn't meet me there." I was like, "What do you mean me? Like, it was supposed to be a bunch of you, wasn't it?" like, I see what you're doing, Kimberly. I see what you're doing.
Yeah,
I know.
He doesn't even think it's a date. He's just like, "Oh, cool, I'm making friends."
Well, when you say meet, a couple of us are hanging out, I wouldn't assume it's a date either. I'm like, a couple of us are hanging out. You know, you got your group of friends I saw. Like, but
hey, he was onto something. The whole world doesn't revolve around.
I'm sorry for existing.
Like literally, up until this point, the first time I watched it, I'm like, why is he being so mean? Obviously, I was a child. But when I watch it now, thinking back, when we've seen this episode to episode, and Kimberly is so mean to Billy and so mean to Skull, and I'm like, you know what, Tommy has like a point, right? He's not out of line when he says some of the stuff he says. He's like, why are you concerned for me? I don't know you, right? And then I don't know you. Boy, and then she's like, why are you acting like you're mad at me? It's like, this isn't about you, Kimberly. I have other things to worry about. My Empress needs me.
But I do like Kim's response as she walks away. She goes, "Excuse me for living."
Excuse me for living. It's so funny. Yeah. I think the first 2 instances where like he's mean to her, it's like, okay, you know, she had it coming. But in the third instance, me and Nava talked. Actually, I saw it on Twitter. It's that scene where he's like doing the reps.
Well then, Big Ranger.
So iconic. That scene is ingrained
so
in my
intense.
memory.
The intensity of it is amazing.
Yeah.
He's
so
like,
good.
Hey, he went from like being mean to just like, I'm literally gonna kill you.
Yeah, that was like serial killer vibes.
Your life. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm not playing Mr. Nice Guy anymore. That scene is so good. I know it's silly, but I literally love that scene.
Oh no, it's great.
Yeah, for a lot of reasons, because so there's anger. You can tell he's really like worse into the spell than she thought. Kimberly's reaching out like, we can help you. And then he says, "Is that so, Pink Ranger?"
Mm-hmm.
And Kimberly has this and you can see it in her eyes. She's just like, what? And she goes back and she's like, he's known who we were all along.
Yep.
And I think that's another reason that scene is so awesome and iconic, because it's like really putting together the whole episode. It's like really these moments of like connectivity, which the Power Ranger show isn't really good at that usually. This episode was really good at that.
Yeah. These are small notes I had, but like it was I'd written down too, because they said he totally changed, and I was like, you don't know him.
You don't know.
How do you change it? How? Like, he could have been a jerk the whole time. He was just
I don't know.
But going back to the Jason Goldar thing, my favorite thing that Goldar says, he's like, "Now you're demanding. Soon you'll be begging." I was like, man, that's savage. That's
that whole scene was like, I'm like, what is going on here, Goldar?
It's so wild for that.
Those lines, I'm like, it's a little touch and go here.
I love it. His arrogance in that is so it's over the top, but it's hilarious, because he's just like, okay, I'm just gonna drop the morpher. Go for it, bro.
Yeah,
Like,
go for it, do it. There's a lot of fan fiction about that scene. Like, I guarantee it. Guaranteed. Yeah.
But his overconfidence was that there the whole episode, because even when he was up with Rita, he's like, I am the best.
Yep.
I can definitely defeat him. And I think that's more than we've seen from Goldar before too. So
yeah, Goldar
good thing
and
he
Jason
punishes
are like
himself because he deserves it now.
yeah. Goldar and Jason are two sides of the same coin. And like you definitely can see that's why for up until this point, like it's always been Goldar and Jason. He doesn't really care about the other Rangers that much. But yeah, I feel like I don't remember in the future if it's the same thing.
That's always like a fun dynamic to explore with like villains. I feel like this like passionate, like it's just you and me kind of idea that like I obviously like with Goldar, since he's like kind of an idiot, it's more comical, but like you can definitely see it like play out in like future seasons of Power Rangers. My favorite one is from Time Force, where it's between Wes and the Sixth Ranger, the Quantum Ranger.
Oh, that's so good.
I was gonna say
Eric literally just hates Wes for everything he does. Like
literally,
I literally hate it when you breathe air. Like I hate everything you do.
Yeah, but you know, I don't even blame. I don't blame Eric. Like
I don't blame Eric either.
Yeah,
eat the rich,
he's
man.
just like come on. Like, Jen like also hates Wes until the end, right? Like there's reasons he's not like good at his job.
But
I'm just saying.
Just to jump to Time Force, like the ending of how it ends and knowing that they like fight, you know, together. It's like, oh man, so iconic. It's like they hate it. Well, Eric just hates Wes, but like he's like, yeah, we'll do this together, I guess.
Yeah. No, but Nick, I think a better example of a villain is the Psycho Rangers, dude.
Oh
like,
yeah, they just like
they are just like they're not just obsessed with
yes.
destroying the Rangers, they're just obsessed with destroying their color Rangers.
Their color Rangers.
Red Ranger could not care about Blue Ranger, the Blue Ranger at all. He's like, I just want the Red Ranger. Where is he? And like, it's amazing actually. When we get to that, hopefully, like,
hopefully we'll get to that. I think even further down the line, so Psycho Rangers is also a one time as a kid that like I was legitimately stressed. When with Beast Morphers, they also had something similar with the avatars. So they kind of had something, but they didn't care about they just hated the Rangers, right?
This is not Power Ranger related, but Yugi Moto and Seto Kaiba from Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yes.
That is the most hottest, most intense intimacy that two people can have.
Seto
ever.
is the pettiest. Seto's the pettiest.
A final movie where he literally designs a machine to go into a different dimension just to play a game with the Pharaoh. That guy's in love with him. Like, you can't tell me anything else. That guy's in love with that guy.
I don't.
Okay, he literally is jumping
so many words.
Time.
But in the I remember in the show, he's dueling Yugi, and he decides, oh, I'm willing to commit to take my own life. Or lose, like win this duel.
This guy's intense,
because the holograms have huge explosions, like the energy, I guess, released. So he stands on a ledge, and he's like, "Go ahead, make your attack, and then I'll fall and die, and you'll be guilt ridden for the rest of your life." And I'm like, "Dude, it's a card game. It's a card game."
To continue our Yu-Gi-Oh in our Power Rangers podcast, Akil, do you have any thoughts? Like any thoughts?
You said something, Akil.
No.
Yeah. Any final thoughts? Do you think this episode is as iconic as we think it is? I think is the most important question.
Yes.
I don't know if iconic is the right word yet, because everything that you guys were talking about the introduction of the Green Ranger is how this comes into play later, and I haven't seen that.
Sure.
Right.
So I think this episode arc will be iconic when I finish the series. But right now it is intense. It is driving. I think they did. So when we said we were going to do this, I thought it was a 3-part arc.
No, it's
not
five.
It's five.
Yeah.
But they did a great job of like making sure that people, or at least that I was engaged episode to episode to episode. The first time it was corny because it's like, oh, there's some coming next. Stay tuned.
Yeah.
But like by the beginning of the second episode, I was like more invested than I have been in this story. So it was absolutely fantastic. Excellent storytelling.
These episodes, it was like one a day for a week.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They showed all 5 like through 1 week. So
Yes.
imagine waiting a week for that. Oh my god.
Yeah, I would. I would not have liked that.
Like,
I remember feeling.
Insane.
Yeah, I remember the feelings of watching this episode, just like in
Yeah.
my heart. Yeah, I'm like,
Because
You had the luxury of watching it all at once, but like, can you imagine as a kid, you're like watching this? This is probably the most stressed you've ever felt in your entire life.
part
Yeah.
2,
The world is shattering. You're like, I only know the Power Rangers as good people, and then you're telling me there's an evil Green Ranger, and then every episode is just escalating and escalating to just being worse. And
yeah,
you're like, what is going on? I hate this.
I know.
part 2
I can't
ends.
go to second grade right now. Like,
Part 2 ends with Jason trapped in the dark dimension. Like, imagine even 24 hours, like thinking, I would be thinking about the rest of the day. I could not think about anything
It would
else.
be the
What's he
only
gonna
thing to
do?
talk about on the playground.
Listen, I was like, will Jason ever be okay? I need to know. It was like the longest time of my life, and I feel like when we were kids too, if you missed it, you missed it, right?
Yeah.
Like, you have to wait till a marathon.
Yeah. They weren't doing
Yeah.
reruns like you know,
Yeah.
as much.
I go to the swap meet and get the tapes, and then the tapes would have like 5 or 6 episodes on them.
Mhm.
But it'd just be like I'd watch the same 5-6 episodes every time, and I think the ones I had were like a later season 2 and 3. But yeah, that's so funny thinking about it. Kids just going to school, and like, what's wrong? I was like, what's wrong, Billy? I was like, I don't know, man.
I don't know if Jason's gonna
Yeah.
survive.
Oh, it's stress.
I was gonna do this.
It's a stressful time, guys. I remember, this is like slightly off topic, when I was in grade 4. That's when In Space came out to age me. And we had to write these like time capsules, and just like, what was your favorite TV show? And I wrote Power Rangers, and someone was like reading, and they're like, you like Power Rangers? I'm like 9 years old. I'm like, is that too old to like Power Rangers?
Yeah, that's when
Like,
I had my reality check. I think it was in like 5th grade.
Yeah.
Did show and tell, and I brought like a Power Rangers Megazord, and everyone's like, I remember one kid's like, you still watch Power Rangers? I was like, what's wrong with that? Like, chill out.
Little they know we're watching it straight up to like our whole lives.
Yeah.
Stopped, right? It's so funny.
Oh man.
Yeah,
Wow.
I watched Power Rangers till I was like in high school, like at least keeping up with the seasons, and then after I stopped for a little bit, then I caught up, and then since then haven't stopped. But yeah, I think
thinking about it, it's like you'd come home from school, right? Like either middle school or high school, and like everyone talks about the shows like Code Lyoko, and like what's like more iconic shows like the more iconic,
Sailor
like,
Moon.
Sailor Moon, what is it, like Ben 10 and stuff like that. It's like everyone loves those shows, but Power Rangers was also on at the time. And I'm like, I just made the decision to go watch that instead, and it's like, what's the difference between watching General or Megas XLR and watching Power Rangers? Like, I think there was just this probably era. I feel like it was maybe like 10 years ago where like Power Rangers was like lame. But the Disney, that was like around the Disney era of like Power Rangers, and but like that's when it was like the best. That was like when they had like really good seasons.
They did have really good seasons. Yeah, so I loved a lot of the Disney era season, like Dino Thunder, Ninja Storm, SPD. It's really good. I didn't really like Mystic Force.
I think we talked about this.
It's not bad.
Like Mystic Force.
Yeah.
I don't care for Joe.
Nick didn't do anything.
Dude, Nick was the worst.
Yeah,
Nick was awful. But yeah, I think for whatever reason, there just became the aura of Power Rangers disappeared after the first couple of seasons, sadly, and then like, it became uncool to watch Power Rangers, and I was just like,
yeah,
I don't know what you're talking about. These are giant robots fighting each other in space. What's
Space was so good.
What's to not like about that? I don't understand. It's the same thing like as a wrestling fan. I've been watching wrestling my whole life. Every time I talk to people about wrestling, they're like, "Oh yeah, I used to watch it when I was younger," and I'm like, "Okay," and that's fine. Like I don't. People grow out of things. It's fine. But again, there was a point where like in like 2001, kind of people just started to the audience start to get smaller, because it used to be huge. Like professional wrestling was so huge in the late 90s, and then in the 2000s just kind of like dropped off slowly. Well, not even slowly, very quickly. But it's similar with Power Rangers, where it's just like when you bring it up, people who did watch it at one point, or just like there became this, I don't know if stigma is the right word, but this idea about these media where it's like, oh, that's lame, or that's not interesting or whatever. And I'm just like, I mean, it's entertainment like anything else. I don't see the big issue. Because plenty of people still watch anime or cartoons, and it's like no one's
right. That's why I'm so glad though that like the Power Rangers community has been cultivated. Like there's a lot of us, like surprisingly a lot. For a long time we were living in secret.
Yeah.
I wasn't. I was.
I 100%.
Either in high school, I was like, yeah. I feel like everyone else was, because it wasn't until I was in university that people started like admitting to me that they like Power Rangers, because I was always vocal about it. So I think it's just, I feel like a lot of people were very secretive about it. Yeah. But now that, sorry.
What were you doing, Akil, if you weren't watching Power Rangers?
I was being born.
Oh yeah.
No, but like in the late 90s and 2000s.
Like, what were you watching? Because this is your first time watching Power Rangers. So
this was my first time.
Were you always the Lego guy? Was that like?
No. This was around the time before I was allowed to play with Lego.
Oh wow.
Because I have 2 older brothers, so they didn't let me play. What was I watching? I don't even know what I was watching at this time.
Well,
I think this was my book era.
Oh, okay.
Well, I see how it is.
Dude, I was all in the. It wasn't just Power Rangers. It was Big Bad Beetleborgs. There was also the show. It lasted 1 or maybe 1 season. I think it's called Mystic Knights of Tir na nog.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Joke with me. I loved that
I'm not
show.
joking with you. Yeah.
You're the first person I've ever met that knows that show, and I can't believe we've never talked about
VR
this.
Troopers, yeah.
The 1 season of Masked Rider.
Yeah. No.
Masked Rider Dragon Knight. Oh, man.
I'm not as familiar with Masked Rider.
Did you guys ever watch Space Cases?
No.
Oh my gosh, that has Zach from Power Rangers from before he was actually a Power Rangers.
Ooh.
It was so good. It was like Star Trek, but like for kids, pretty much. And George Takei actually was in an episode of it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I remember this hair.
But yeah, there was just something about that era where they had these absurdly long names for superhero characters.
Yeah.
Big Bad Beetleborgs, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Mystic Knights of Tir na nog. I don't know why.
Mystic Knights.
Yeah. It's very, I mean, it's not like it's amazing, but still, it's just cool.
No,
like, I like knights, and they transform.
Yeah. Remember one of the knights was obsessed with tarts? And I'm like, I relate to that guy more than anything in this world.
I remember their calls more than anything, but I always mix up the calls. Because it was like, everybody had an element to them.
Yeah.
So it was like the water beneath me, and then they'd get their armor.
The air above me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the wind around me. And then there was also a 5th one that came later.
Exactly. It was literally just like Power Rangers.
Just like Power Rangers. So good. I think it's on something. I think it might be on Prime or something. I'll double check and I'll send you a message. But that was the end of Green with Evil Saga. So, just as a thought, I would like us to do the new movie, because now is a good time to do it since Tommy introduction, right? So we're at the end of the 5 Ranger thing. We could do the movie before continuing, because that is the 5 Ranger story. Right. What do you guys think?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
I love that movie.
I just watched it like 2 days ago, but I will watch it again happily.
I'll watch it again. Have you ever seen it?
No, I've never seen it.
Oh okay, you're in for a treat.
Okay. It's so good, bro. Like,
dude,
it's so good.
It's amazing.
Man.
I hate the fact that it did not get the love it deserves, and that we didn't get, not just we didn't get a sequel, we didn't get the planned 6-movie franchise that this guy, the Dean Israelite, who's the director, he wanted to do 6 movies of this, and he set it up by introducing the Zeo crystals right in the beginning. And I'm just like, we could have had a whole world with like Zed and more, and none of that is going to come to fruition because people got so upset about product
trivial
placement.
Things.
Yeah.
Oh.
I saw this movie 4 times in theaters.
Yeah,
Wow.
I saw
The
like
first
2 or
time I
3.
walked out, I was like, I don't know. The second time I went to go see it just to reassure my feelings, I was like, it's pretty, it's pretty good. Third time I watched it with my now wife, and she was like, I don't get it. And I was like, I think I understand this movie now.
Yeah.
And then the fourth time I saw it with my friends, and I was like, this is the greatest movie I've ever
It's
seen.
so good. I'm
went-
excited. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was saying I went Thursday night, 6 p.m.
Yes.
showing, premiere showing at my theater. I walked out of there going, I am so excited for what we're like. It's so good. I not only saw it like 2 or 3 times in theaters, I bought the Blu-ray. I don't usually buy Blu-rays because I don't care. But I was like, no, I'm supporting this movie as much as I can. So my friend and I bought the Blu-ray. And then I even still bought it on Prime just because, like, I was like, whatever. Like,
whenever I want to watch it.
Yeah. If I'm too lazy to put the disc in, I'll just. But
I went to the theater dressed in my. So this is when Dino Charge was actually out. So I had my Dino Charge outfit, and I went dressed in my Dino Charge outfit. And honestly, I loved that movie so much. I'm so excited. I have a lot of thoughts about it. I know you guys have a lot of thoughts about it. I'm so excited for you to hear this.
Watch Breakfast Club. I'm not joking. Watch Breakfast Club and then watch this movie.
Yeah.
Okay. You're gonna appreciate it for what it is.
I had one last question though for Akil. Like, so when you were younger, you never saw even a single episode of Power Rangers?
Not a single episode.
Wow.
That's
I grew up during the Disney era, and I didn't have Disney Channel.
No, but Akil, we're the same age.
During the Disney era.
We're the same age.
We're the same age.
Yeah.
When was the Disney era then? I thought that was like early 2000s, mid 2000s.
Yeah, but Power Rangers started in 1993. So like.
Yeah, I started in 93.
Yeah, I know. I started in 92.
I didn't watch TV for the first few years of my life. Dude.
No, but like 98, 99, you know.
No. Disney era was so 93, so 3 seasons of Mighty Morphin.
Yeah.
That's 96 already.
Yeah.
Zeo, 97. Turbo, 98.
Yep. 99 was Space.
In Space, 99. Lost Galaxy, 2000s. And then
01 is Lightspeed.
Also that's the band. So
02 Time Force.
I will say I feel like Rescue and Time Force and all that stuff. If you weren't already engaged with Power Rangers at the time, you weren't watching those seasons. You know what I mean?
Kids were watching it, younger than us kids.
I'm just surprised that you've never seen a single episode.
Yeah.
What did you think about? I'm wondering what was your perception of Power Rangers? Did you just think?
Did you know of it?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's it's in the cultural zeitgeist, I guess. So I know that it exists. I know that it's a combination of like a Japanese show and an American show. It's color coordinated ninja heroes, which is just a trope across the board. But yeah, I've never seen a single episode. I was talking to my family about it. My brother has seen he remembers watching 1 episode from childhood. My sister-in-law remembers Kimberly, and that's it. She doesn't know how much she watched.
Valid.
That's funny.
What's going on in the West End of Canada?
That's so interesting. I think that's I'm not surprised if you hadn't seen like a whole season. I'm surprised that you haven't seen 1 single episode.
I haven't seen a single
that is wild.
But I mean, it's cool. I love this.
I'm so jealous. You get to relive it.
First time. It's so exciting. So good. I hope you're enjoying it. Genuinely.
I
I hope you end up becoming a huge fan.
So what do you feel so far in the 21, 22 episodes we've watched now?
22 episodes. It's I liked these last 5 episodes because I think I talked about it in the last 2 episodes of this podcast of we know the formula, it's just repeating now, and then this one really shook things up.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. I feel like if it wasn't for this arc, I could have just stopped right here and been like, okay, I know all of Power Rangers now.
Not too far off,
right.
But there is a lot of complexity to later seasons, right? But if specifically talking about these set of Rangers and stuff, you're not too far off.
I think what you'll notice when you watch the movies is it's very character driven.
Yes.
A lot of the things that you desire out of these characters that we pull from the details and stuff like that. It's more about them as teenagers than them about being Power Rangers, and that's what makes that movie so meaningful to me personally, because it's this is it feels like people that just so happen to be superheroes.
Right.
Yeah.
And that dynamic is just something that like it happens in the Power Ranger lore or like the Power Ranger series, but like to really focus on that like really hammers it in, and I really enjoy that.
Yeah.
And that's why I like revisiting it, or I guess visiting it with you guys, because you pick up on those moments now and you're like, oh, this is this character growth that comes into play later, or like this is this interaction that comes into play later, or this is that thing that gets picked up later. So it's like I assumed that it would like build, and then the next season starts from scratch and then build. But it sounds like from the beginning they were just like building, and like everything that happens affects, I guess, 20-30 years down the road.
Now it does.
Yeah.
It's kind of wild.
It comes and goes, you know, like it's dependent on who owns it, and you know, because like there have been like certain people that when certain companies own it, they like do not want to acknowledge past lore at all. Like it's this weird mandate that the like showrunner or the executives will put in, which is annoying because it's like there's all this lore. Why would you not want to address it or even like reference it? So it's kind of Power Rangers has had a very weird, you know, like trajectory through its 30 years now because of like a different ownership and stuff. But I think I'm very pleased with Hasbro from everything I've heard and seen from them in like what they want to do with Power Rangers. So that's why I'm really excited to see where like not only what happens in the anniversary special, but also Cosmic Fury, which is the next series, and then where it goes beyond that, because they plan to not do like what they've been doing. They plan to kind of change up the formula with like different shows and movies and stuff like that.
Okay.
It's an exciting time. All right, so tune in next time. We're going to be watching the new Power Rangers movie before we continue on with the rest of the Mighty Morphin series. I think before that, the special episode would also drop like within the next month, so we'll do that as a special episode. It won't be included in the main. We're really excited. Until then, I'm Minhas, and I'm joined with Nick, Akil, and Nev.
Once a Ranger, always a Ranger.